Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. In this audience, there are some who may be totally unfamiliar with the Gita, and there may be some who have been studying Gita for many years. So we have a whole range of listeners. But to those who are perhaps listening for the first time, the name of the text of the scripture of which we want to give introduction is called Bhagavad Gita. Gita means a song. Bhagavad Gita, that which is sung by Bhagavan, sung by the Lord. So this is a song or teaching imparted by Lord Krishna to his disciple Arjuna. In a very unusual circumstances, this teaching was imparted. This dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. Lord Krishna is the teacher, Arjuna is the disciple, and that dialogue is called Bhagavad Gita. This dialogue took place in the midst of a battlefield, a most unusual place for imparting such a profound teaching. The tradition was and is the teaching of this nature takes place in a very serene place, free from all external disturbances, on the bank of a river, in the forest, because you need an environment which is calm, tranquil, free from all disturbances, for you to focus your attention on something as profound as this. However, we find that this teaching is imparted in the midst of a battlefield, which is very symbolic. Battlefield is a place where there are conflicting forces, and our mind also represents a battlefield, because in our mind also there are many conflicting forces. One part of the mind thinks that this is the right way of doing. Other part of mind thinks that that is not the way to do. These kind of conflicts do arise. Basically, there is a conflict between what is convenient and what is right. What is right and what is convenient. Very often, what is right is not convenient, and therefore a conflict arises. For example, while filing my income tax return, I am required to declare my income truly as it is. If I declare income correctly, then I wind up paying lots of taxes, income tax. Then I can manage my income. And show the income as much less than what it really is when I can save paying the taxes. A simple example, I don't think you have this for example, I am creating an example. So one side is honesty, truthfulness, where I should declare what it really is. On the other side is my greed. The greedy part in me tells me that, look, money is very valuable. What is there in telling one lie? What is there if you tell untruth once? You can save a lot of money. What's wrong with it? So what is right and what is convenient? Right is to be honest. What is convenient is perhaps to sacrifice that honesty and save some money. So these kind of conflicts do arise in our mind. And Bhagavad Gita begins with a conflict like this. The teaching is imparted to Arjuna, who is a warrior. He is the commander-in-chief. And according to the distribution of duties in the Vedic society in ancient India, the society was divided into 4 castes and 4 kinds of duties were assigned to them. It was a distribution of the duties depending upon the aptitude and the competence. So every person has a certain aptitude and certain skill and certain natural competence. And if the duties are divided accordingly, then a person who performs the duty can do it well. So here is a warrior, that's a caste, warrior caste. The job of the person belonging to this caste, his duty was to protect the society, to protect what we call the righteousness, dharma or righteousness. So whenever there is a danger on the society, or whenever there is a danger on dharma or the righteousness in the society, then the members of warrior caste were supposed to stand up and fight against injustice. So the warrior caste role is to fight against injustice. So Arjuna is a member of this caste. He is the leader of his army and he has come to this battlefield along with his army to fight against injustice. The enemy side represents injustice. So this is a battle between justice and injustice, or righteousness and unrighteousness, dharma and adharma in Sanskrit. Righteousness is called dharma, unrighteousness is called adharma. So this is the battle between dharma and adharma. Arjuna the warrior represents dharma, righteousness. His duty is to protect righteousness, to fight against unrighteousness, fight against injustice. So this is set up. What happens is, as the battle was about to begin, this Arjuna, the warrior chief, requested his chariot. In those days, the vehicles were chariots. And this Lord Krishna was the charioteer. He was the driver of the chariot, and Arjuna is the master of the chariot. So he requests his charioteer, Lord Krishna. It's very interesting. Lord Krishna is much more revered, occupying a much higher position in the society, in the country. Arjuna is much junior to him, and still such an important person who is a king, who is revered in the whole society, in the whole world. He volunteers to act as a charioteer, as a driver, at the request of Arjuna. Arjuna requests Lord Krishna, will you please become my charioteer? Lord Krishna says, sure. He volunteers. That shows the character of Lord Krishna. In spite of being such a man of such importance, such greatness, such dignity, such recognition, he has no hesitation in even accepting a very lowly job of a driver. Because he does what is the right thing to do. So he saw that the situation required this response from him, and therefore he accepted to act as a charioteer. So Arjuna requests his charioteer to take his chariot between the two armies so that he can survey both the armies before beginning the battle. When his chariot is brought between the two armies, and when he surveys the people in both the armies, he finds that there were many people in both the armies who were his near and dear ones. Many relatives, many friends, many revered people, they were part of both the armies. And Arjuna therefore realized that as a result of this battle, all these people will be killed, meaning that as a result of this battle, his near and dear ones would be killed. So here now is a conflict between what is right and what is convenient, what is right and what I like. His heart went out for these people who are his relatives. He realized that fighting this battle will involve the death of all these people. That very idea made him extremely sad. There was a conflict in his mind. On one side, he knew that I am a Kshatriya, I am a warrior. My duty it is to protect the righteousness, protect justice. That is what his intelligence says. His intellect says. Understand that we have these two kinds of personalities. One is a thinking personality. Other is an emotional personality. The emotional one within Arjuna say to him that no, this is not right. I cannot see the death of all these people. So conflict arose in the mind of Arjuna of what is right and what I like. What is right is to fight the battle, to perform his duty. Understand that he has not come to the battlefield to kill people. He has come to the battlefield to protect dharma, to fight against, not against people, to fight against injustice. It happens that the enemy side represents injustice, therefore he had to fight with people. But basically his role or duty is to fight against injustice, which was the right thing to do, which is what he understands. But the emotional one in him says that no, it is very painful. Meaning that what he was required to do was very painful. And there is a natural tendency to avoid pain. So on one hand, the tendency to avoid pain. On the other hand, doing what is right. In doing what is right, a lot of pain is involved. So, either he does what is right, or he does what is convenient, or what he likes. So this is conflict. And Bhagavad Gita is taught, this teaching is imparted in the background of this conflict. Arjuna, the warrior, was overcome with emotion, and he says that I will not fight this battle. Understand that the charioteer, Lord Krishna, is a wise person. He's a Lord, incarnation of God. He is the embodiment of wisdom. And Arjuna knows that. So Arjuna says to Lord Krishna, I will not fight the battle. Here Arjuna, if you fight the battle, then you will gain victory. You will gain kingdom. You will gain power. You will gain means of happiness. Arjuna says, Oh Lord, I am not interested in king victory. I am not interested in kingdom. I am not interested in means of happiness. What is there in victory? What is there in kingdom? What is there in means of happiness? Thus, Arjuna wants to justify his decision of not fighting the battle. This is the background. You will wonder what relation this has with us. We don't have to fight battles. We are not in a position of Arjuna. Therefore, the teaching imparted to Arjuna, in what way does it apply to us? A scripture is that which must impart universal teaching. Bhagavad Gita is a scripture which imparts universal teaching, meaning that which is applicable to every human being at all times, at all places. Then only it can be called scripture. Bhagavad Gita is a scripture. But for imparting a teaching, you require a certain background. You require a certain situation. And therefore, the first chapter, Bhagavad Gita, this text has 18 chapters. The first chapter is devoted to describing the mental state of Arjuna, the conflict going on in his mind, the grief or the sadness that he is feeling. And the first chapter concludes with the description of Arjuna as to how he gave up his bow and arrow and collapsed in the midst of the chariot. So, look at the verse here. On the page number 3, The verse is given in the Devanagari. There is also English transliteration and English translation. If you cannot read, it does not matter. If you can read, all right. In the third chapter, on the third page, verse number 47. The first verse on that page, number 3. Arjuna Sankhye Rathopastha Upavishat Visrujya Sasharam Chapam Shoka Samvigna Manasaha. The translation says, having spoken in this manner, in the middle of the battlefield, putting aside his bow and arrows, his mind completely overcome by sorrow, Arjuna sat down on the seat of the chariot. So important thing here is that this warrior, Arjuna, was overcome with sorrow, overcome with grief. So one thing is, Bhagavad Gita addresses the problem of sorrow or grief. Also, the grief arises because of a conflict in the mind. The battlefield represents a typical conflict between two opposing forces. And as I said earlier, our mind is like a battlefield where there are very often conflicting forces. One part of the mind says, this is the right thing to do. Other part of the mind says, that is the right thing to do. And thus, we are required to make choices. This is a typical human problem. The conflict in the mind is a typical human problem. The sadness and grief also is a typical human problem. Why is it so? Because human being is privileged to have what you call free will. What is free will? Free will is the freedom to make choices. What kind of choice? In any situation, whether to do something or not do it, or how to do it, this kind of choice we have, this free will or freedom of choice we have. In that way, the human being is distinguished from other living beings. That other living beings do not seem to have their free will. They are all pre-programmed. Meaning that a dog or a cat or a cow or a buffalo or a mosquito or a tree or a plant, everything other than human beings, all of these are programmed to act. Therefore, there is no conflict in their mind. Conflict is there when there is a choice. When there is a choice, there is responsibility. So we have the freedom of choice, which is a privilege. When freedom is there, there is also the responsibility. Because if freedom is exercised with responsibility, then that freedom becomes a blessing. On the other hand, if we exercise freedom without responsibility, if we abuse that freedom, then that very freedom becomes a curse. Therefore, it only becomes proper for us that the freedom given to us must be exercised in a responsible manner. then by the proper use of freedom we can help ourselves, and by abusing freedom we can hurt ourselves. The human being can help himself or he can hurt himself. A cow cannot help herself nor can it hurt herself because there is no choice. For example, place grass before cow and place a piece of meat before the cow. The cow has no conflict as to what to eat because it is programmed to eat grass. But place grass before the owner of the cow. Place cow on one side and grass on the other side, then he has to make a choice whether to eat vegetable or whether to eat meat, because he has a choice. The human being has a choice, which is a great privilege. But as I said, the freedom also gives us the responsibility to exercise the freedom in an appropriate manner, in a mature manner. If we get overcome by our impulses, such as suppose I get angry, I'm overcome by anger, overcome by jealousy, overcome by hatred, overcome by greed, overcome by fear, overcome by frustration. If I'm overcome by these or other impulses, in all likelihood, I will abuse the freedom, meaning that I will make a wrong choice. And my freedom will be abused, in which case I will hurt myself and I will hurt others. So human being can help himself and help others by the proper, responsible and mature use of the free will, or the human being can hurt himself and hurt others by an improper or immature use of the free will. That is why we need direction. There is no choice, no direction needed. Suppose there is only one road from point A to point B, just one road, you do not need a map, you do not need a GPS, you don't need anything, one road. However, when you are traveling, there are intersections. At every intersection now, there is a choice to go on the right, go on the left, or go straight, right? So which way will you go? Will you go right, or left, or straight? Which way will you go? Straight, isn't it?
And so where do you want to go?
Suppose, will you go right, or left, or straight? Where will you go?
The right way.
Wherever GPS tells.
We will choose that road which leads us to our destination. Therefore, for making the right choices, we must have the knowledge of what the destination is and what is the road which leads to destination. Sometimes it can happen that the road on the right is a very inviting road, very smooth pavement, tree-lined road, very scenic route. Road on the left is a rough road, bumpy. So the natural temptation is to take the right scenic road. But what if that bumpy, rough road takes you to the destination? Then that's the right choice. But if you fall for temptation, then it's likely that you might take that other road which does not take you to destination. For example, in the last blood test, it was discovered that my blood sugar The doctor told me, Swamiji, you already are too sweet. And therefore, too sweet means what? Your blood sugar is high. And therefore, stop eating sweets. The whole of life I had a sweet tooth, and therefore I loved and enjoyed sweets. And all of a sudden, it says no. So when a Swami is invited for meals, the hosts are always very kind. Generally there are 2 or 3 kinds of sweets, desserts. Now a dessert is placed before me, there is a conflict. What is right and what I like. What I like is to take a piece of sweet, put it in my mouth. What is right is to restrain myself. But if I fall for my temptation, it's quite likely that I'll make a wrong choice and hurt myself. So this is what this situation arises in the life of human being again and again in the life of the human being. There are temptations in our life which invite us to violate or go against what is right. In case of Arjuna also, what is right is that he should fight the battle. What he likes is to avoid pain, and therefore the conflict. So therefore, very interestingly, this teaching is imparted in the battlefield, where it represents a conflict, because there is a conflict in the mind of a human being. Conflict between 2 opposing forces. One side is what is right, other side is what is tempting. One side is what is right, other side is what my anger makes me do. Therefore, this is a teaching that is applicable to all human beings at all times. Sometimes people ask this question, Swamiji, this dialogue took place thousands of years ago. What relevance it is now in the 21st century? What happens is, the certain things remain the same. Certain things change, but certain things remain the same. The hunger remains the same. It was an ancient man or a modern man, hunger is the same. But the ancient man may be eating some raw things, the modern man may be eating some very sophisticated dishes. So what you eat may change, but that you need to eat does not change. You follow? Meaning that certain things change about our life, but certain things do not change. And it is that which Bhagavad Gita is addressing. The problem that existed thousands of years ago in the human mind, the same problem that exists today also. Because today also I am likely to be overcome by my impulses of anger or greed, and it is possible that I may do things that are not right, and I may hurt myself and hurt others. And we see that happening in the world. What is all the lots of corruption taking place everywhere? What is it? It is greed. So person overcome by greed compromises the values. A lot of violence we see taking place. Person overcome by anger and hatred, and violence takes place. So by lust, violence takes place. By anger, violence takes place. By greed, violence takes place. So wherever we find in the world variety of problems in the world, you'll find that all of them are because human being falls prey to his impulses of lust, anger, greed, kama, krodha, lobha. Lots of raping taking place, that is the kama lust. Lot of killing taking place, krodha, the anger. Lot of corruption taking place, lobha or the greed. Sometimes people ask this question, Swamiji, you say that God has created this world. Why has He created a world like this? Why has He created this suffering? Why has He created the violence? Answer is, the human being has created all problems. God has given us a world which has provision for all creatures and all living beings, that we can live comfortably and happily if we live in cooperation with each other. But moment we start competing, moment our self-centeredness comes into play, then all the problems are created. So understand that all the suffering which is there in the world is all created by human being because of the abuse of free will. So we can see what abuse of free will can do, what it has done. At the same time, we see also that human being has been a great blessing to the humanity. Why? A proper use of free will. So both of these are evidence that by proper use of free will, human being has blessed himself and the whole world, and by abuse of free will, he has hurt himself and others. Therefore, making right choices is a very important thing to do. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us making right choices. Secondly, as we said, other problem is that Arjuna was overcome by grief, by sadness. This grief and sadness also is a ancient human problem. Thousands of years ago, the people were sad, grieving. In 21st century also, with all the luxuries that we have, the sadness and grief has not gone away. Meaning that grief or sadness is a subjective situation, not the objective situation. Meaning all changes take place as far as the environment is concerned, objective situation is concerned. As far as subject is concerned, it is the same. So there are two kinds of problems in our life. One are the problem centered upon the world, non-self. Others are the problem centered upon the self. So hunger, thirst, poverty, illiteracy, all of these are problems centered upon non-self. And they call for appropriate solutions. But sadness, grief is a problem centered upon the self. The solution must be compatible to the problem. So, the sadness or grief is a spiritual problem. Hunger and thirst are the material problems, and grief or sadness is a spiritual problem. For material problems, we should have material solutions. For spiritual problems, we should have spiritual solutions. Normally, what we do is, when I don't feel good, I feel little unhappy, I feel sad, I go for a movie, I go for ice cream, I go for a chocolate candy, I go for pizza, I go for a ride. Meaning that for overcoming sadness or grief, I have been generally employing the material solutions. And that's the reason why we do not get freedom from that sadness or grief. So, Bhagavad Gita, like other scriptures, provides the solution to this basic human problem of sadness, of grief. Swamiji, I don't have any sadness. I don't need Bhagavad Gita. I have no sadness. Somebody may tell, from you, I have no sadness, I have no problem in life. So I ask the question, Do you get angry sometimes? Yes, Swami, that I do. Do you feel jealous sometimes? Yes, jealousy comes. Do you feel frustrated? Yeah, frustration comes. Do you feel anxious? Yeah, that comes. Sometimes do you feel fear? Yes, that happens. So this fear, anxiety, jealousy, frustration, anger, greed, all of these are the manifestations of inner sadness, inner grief. So we do not even understand our own self. But this grief or sadness is the primary human problem. This problem is not there with other creatures. A dog does not feel sad. Have you ever seen a depressed dog? Or a depressed cow? Or a depressed buffalo? Have you seen? You do not need this kind of meetings between buffaloes. You don't need one buffalo teaching other buffaloes because they don't have that problem. In India, we have street dogs, stray dogs. You never find a stray dog ever depressed or sad, sitting in one corner with his face, long face, and you don't find that. Somebody says, Swamiji, my dog gets depressed. I said, how long has the dog stayed with you? We are capable of transferring our sadness to them. That is possible. But as they are made, they don't have problem of stress. A buffalo has no stress. A cow has no stress because they are programmed. They have no responsibility. They don't have to make choices. Choices are already made for them. We are stressed because we have choices. We have responsibility. Responsibility causes stress. Making choice causes stress. So is it good to be a human being or to be a buffalo? Tell me. If you are a buffalo, no stress, no anxiety, no stress, no conflict. Very often we feel it's better to be a buffalo than being a human being. Is it not so? Because from morning I have stresses. Beginning from what to wear from there. Then what to, beginning from that all the way up to evening, all kinds of problems I have. A cow has no problem. A dog has no problem. Would it be nice to be a cow rather than being a human being? This sadness, is it a good thing to have or a bad thing to have? Tell me. This grief, sadness, conflict, stresses which we are suffering from, is it a good thing to have or a bad thing to have? Is it the right thing to have or the wrong thing to have? Meaning that, you see, human being is supposed to be the most evolved creature, right? Human being is the epitome of evolution. Animals are at a much lower level of evolution. They are happier than we are. So what have we accomplished by evolution? Tell me. If by being evolved, we are more sad, grieving, anxious, depressed, what have we accomplished?
That's a necessary stage in the path of evolution.
Is that evolution desirable or undesirable? See, we have guilt and we have hurt. If I am not treated properly, respectfully, I feel hurt. If I by chance treat you in an improper manner, I have guilt. A cow has no hurt and no guilt. It is free. Is it not nice to be a buffalo? So no hurt and no guilt.
Next slide.
Meaning that has nature or God done favor to us by burdening us with all these problems, or are we cursed? Is it a blessing or is it a curse? Please tell me.
It's a blessing, isn't it? The karma that it's a blessing making.
It's a blessing. Why?
Because when you are sad, that's when you think of God.
It's a blessing, not because that's one of the things, but it's a blessing. Because when you become conscious of a problem, then you are motivated to solve it. The other creatures are not sensitive enough to feel what their problem is. Their ignorance is bliss. They are ignorant of what their problem is, therefore they are in bliss. While on account of being evolved, we are conscious of what our problem is, and therefore that causes unhappiness. At the same time, it causes the motivation to solve that problem. Therefore, stresses are good, sadness is good, grief is good, conflict is good. Why good? So that we find solution. In that sense, human being is most blessed that he can further evolve. There are two stages of evolution. One is the evolution of this organism, which perhaps nature has done, gifted us. There is another kind of evolution that we have to carry out, that is called spiritual evolution. And human being alone is privileged to have the possibility or potential of spiritual evolution. Therefore, as I said, this sadness, the conflict, all of these are spiritual problems. We do not understand that. Therefore, we try to solve those problems by material means. I think that by being wealthy, I will become free from anxiety and sadness. I think that by having power or authority, I'll become free from my inner inadequacy. And therefore, we keep on acquiring and achieving. There's nothing wrong in achieving material things, but the purpose for which we are doing. It's nice to have wealth, nice to have power and authority, nothing wrong in it. If you know how to use it properly, of course, otherwise that also can be a problem. But then, we think that by acquiring those things, we'll become free from sadness or grief. No, that is not going to happen. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita provides the solution to this basic human problem. That's how the first of the 18 chapters, the first chapter of the Gita is devoted to describing this problem, where the last verse of the first chapter says how Arjuna collapsed in the midst of his chariot, overcome with grief and sadness, not knowing what to do. Arjuna is very fortunate that he has Lord Krishna right there. Arjuna recognizes that I have this problem, I have no solution. Usually a human being wants to avoid pain, and therefore we take what we call convenient solutions. In the midst of battlefield, Arjuna also experienced this very deep grief. And he thought that this challenge is the problem. This challenge has created grief in me. That's what he thought. Therefore, by avoiding challenge, he can overcome grief. But no, challenge only triggers what is already there. Understand that grief or sadness is there in the human heart. Usually we avoid confronting that. Whenever any sadness or grief arises, I escape. I go for a movie. I go for a video game. I go for internet. I go for a distraction. Therefore, there are what we call escape distractions. Many of our activities are escape distraction. Escaping from what? Escaping from myself. So we generally want to escape. Arjuna also wanted to escape. Therefore, he says to Lord Krishna, I want to get away from here. I want to get away from challenge. Thinking that by getting away from here, he will get away from sadness. Lord Krishna knows that's not going to happen. Therefore, Lord Krishna is not sympathetic to the appeals of Arjuna. Arjuna appealed to Lord Krishna, I don't want to fight, implying that let us get away from here. Lord Krishna listened to Arjuna and did not oblige him because he knew that simply escaping is not the solution of the problem. Confronting the problem, understanding the cause of the problem. So Bhagavad Gita teaches what's the cause of sadness. Sadness is a symptom. Call it sadness, call it grief, call it stress. Is symptom. Symptom is a manifestation of some inner problem. Usually we provide symptomatic treatment. There is cough, I take cough medicine. Fever, fever medicine. Headache, headache medicine. But headache goes, cough comes. Cough goes, fever comes. Fever goes, stomachache comes. Stomachache goes, backache comes. The symptoms change. Why? Because the basic problem of what illness I am suffering from, as long as that is not removed, that illness will manifest in different symptoms. The human being generally takes symptomatic treatment. I am feeling bored, go for a movie. Feeling sad, go for an ice cream. Feeling this, go for something else. We provide symptomatic treatment. Go for a bigger house. Go for a bigger car. Go for a greater, different furniture. Change the furniture. Change the color. Change the painting. Change the job. Change the spouse, whatever, change. We think that by these external rearrangements, that somehow the inner situation will go. It doesn't. I'm not saying you should not change. All I am saying is that if by those changes, if we expect that our inner discomfort will go, that's not going to happen. And therefore, Bhagavad Gita provides a solution to that basic problem. Sadness is a symptom of what? Why do I feel sad? Why do I feel unhappy? Vedanta explains that I feel sad or unhappy whenever I feel incomplete, inadequate. Understand that unhappiness is not caused by anything out there. No, Swamiji, my neighbor is like this, my boss is like this, my father is like this, my spouse is like that, my child is like that. They make me unhappy, they make me miserable. So we think that it is the world which makes me unhappy. That's our general understanding. And therefore we rearrange the world. rearrange the house, rearrange the car, rearrange the family, rearrange the job, rearrange the place, keep on rearranging, hoping that we'll find an ideal arrangement so that everything will be fine. Not realizing that my sadness is not coming from there. Number Swamiji, he insulted me. Swamiji, I failed in my test. Swamiji, I was laid off from my job. What do you mean? Aren't these the causes for sadness? Vedanta says, no, these need not be the causes of sadness. Nothing out there need necessarily cause sadness. If I am all right, when does a situation cause sadness? When the situation makes me feel incomplete, inadequate. When I become dissatisfied with myself, I become unhappy with myself, that is what causes unhappiness or sadness. Meaning that I am the cause of my sadness, which whenever I find inadequate, whenever I find myself incomplete, inadequate, limited, helpless, hapless, that is when I become unhappy. A helpless, hapless, inadequate self is a problem, and an adequate self is a solution. So problem, in the words of our Swamiji, I am the problem, I am the solution. Which I is a problem? The incomplete, inadequate I is a problem. The complete, adequate I is a solution. So thus Bhagavad Gita is fundamental solution, not symptomatic solutions, fundamental solution. So therefore, but Swamiji, how do you become complete? You are incomplete. I am incomplete in every way, is it not? I am limited in every way. Swamiji, I can hardly lift 10 kilograms of weight. I'm incomplete. I'm limited physically. My memory is limited. Oh, did I meet you last year? I don't remember. Forget. Memory is limited. My grasping power is limited. My retaining power is limited. My intelligence is limited. My skills are limited. My capacities are limited. My strength is limited. In every way, I find myself a limited person. So Swamiji, is it not natural that I should feel limited because I am limited? So Vedanta teaches that in spite of all these limitations in your knowledge, limitations in your memory, limitations in your skill, limitations in all limitations, in spite of them, you are limitless. So this is the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, teaching of Vedanta, which tells us that, hey, you are not a helpless, hapless creature that you take yourself to be. In fact, you are a complete, whole and complete being. You are limitless by nature. If I am limitless by nature, then why do I feel limited? Because of ignorance. So Vedanta says it is because you don't know what your true nature is, and because of ignorance you take not that you take yourself to be a limited being. So because of ignorance I take myself to a limited being, and then I suffer from a sense of limitation. I'll complete this by telling the story which most of these people would have heard, but I'll repeat that story. It is the story of the 10th boy. Have you heard that? Yeah. No? Okay, good. In a village, once upon a time, there was a group of children, 10, 12 years old. They wanted to go for an outing. In village, you need permission from elders. You can't go in those days. So these children as a group went to an elderly gentleman in the village and sought permission that tomorrow we want to go for outing. Can we do that? The old man says you can do, provided one of you takes the responsibility of bringing everybody back safely. So one of them volunteered. I'll take the responsibility. Okay, fellows, let me see how many you are. Let me count you. Come on, line up in front of me. They all lined up. Old man counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 of you. Make sure that all of you return safely. That's your responsibility. Yes, I'll do that. The permission granted. Next day they went for outing, very happy, running, jumping. They came across the river. They knew swimming, swam across the river. Before proceeding further, the fellow whose responsibility it is to bring them safely, the leader, he said, hey, before we proceed further, let me verify if all of us have reached safely or not. Let me count. He had seen last night how the old man had counted. So he says, my friends, come on, line up. They all line up. Let me count. He counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But we were 10. We were making a mistake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Counted many ways. Every time the answer is 9. He thought, maybe I'm making a mistake. So he called one of his friends, hey, come on, you come and count. He has studied in the same school. He also came forward. This fellow joined the line. He counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Each of them came forward one by one. Each of them counted. The number is 9. Now they're all convinced that the 10th boy is lost. They have to find him now. So therefore, they started searching for the missing 10th boy. They divided themselves into search parties. One party went on this bank of the river, other party other bank of the river, one party in the water. For the whole day, they searched for the missing 10th boy. Could they find him? No. In the evening, disappointed, very sad, tired, and very sad, they again gathered under a tree, not knowing what to do. Fortunately for them, another old man was passing by. He saw these children very sad. Came to them, asked them, children, what's the matter? Why do you look so sad? Then the leader says, one of us is lost. We were 10 when we started, now we are 9. Say, how did you arrive at the conclusion that you are 9? We counted. How did you count? He demonstrated. Count. Fellows, line up. Counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. See, there are 9. Old man says, don't worry, children. I know where the 10th man is. Oh, you know? Have you seen him? I have seen him. So they thought that he is seen him someplace else. Where is he? Count again. Now carefully. Pay attention. So now at least they know that somewhere the 10th boy is, so at least they are relieved. With that trust, he started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Where is the 10th man? Where is the 10th boy? You are the 10th boy. So please tell me, how many 10th boys are there? How many 10th boys are there? Huh? Each one of them is 10th boy or one? The one who counts is a 10th boy, isn't it? How many 10th boys are there? One. Huh? Which one? Each one is a 10th boy. So when they are searching for the 10th boy, who are they searching for? Their own self. Similarly, ignorance, this is called ignorance. Not knowing that I am the 10th man, he takes himself with 9th man and is searching for the 10th man. We, not knowing that we are limitless, take ourselves limited and search for the limitlessness, freedom, happiness out there. Therefore, ignorance is a primary problem and knowledge is a primary solution. But Bhagavad Gita provides a two-stage solution. One is solution in the form of knowledge, which is the ultimate solution. Before that, a partial solution in the form of karma, in the form of action of how to live life. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us how to live our life and how to reach the goal. It teaches a destination as well as a path. So we call Bhagavad GPS. What is GPS? Gita positioning system. What is it? GPS. So with that background, we'll conclude tonight and we'll see you at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll conclude with a prayer. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om